Now, the beauty about a sculptor who works on building sculptures is that it seems that the person is doing the same mundane routine thing day in and day out. And it seems extremely boring as well. But from where it started, which is a piece of rock or a piece of stone, to where it ends being a work of fine art, the process involves doing the same thing and doing them correctly over and over and over again. Now, with the budget, one of the key things which can be outlined is the consistency, the intent, the foresightedness, and the vision for not a year or 2 years, but for decades to come, of where India not just can, but should be, because here is the government who's talking about the Amrit Kal, which is at least 25 years from now, who's talking about forward-looking statements which involve inclusions, which involve participation, which involves upliftment, and which involves doing the same thing over and over again, but with consistency. Now, many have said that this feels like Diwali before Holi, because for the middle class, for a person who's wearing the tie in a corporate, for an industrialist, for MSMEs, for a normal citizen, and for every investor who exists out there who wants to see a forward-looking growth engine being built today, this budget has answered every question that could ever have been asked. Now, when you view the episode, some of the things may still boil down to कि ये क्यों नहीं किया government ने? And many of the things, as my colleague Merlin had pointed out to you, are exactly a copybook of what she said when she had presented the view of what the budget could be. Now, when I say that this budget is Diwali before Holi, please believe me that it's leaving more smiles than frowns. And in this episode, we intend to bring out the key highlights which you've seen at least 10,000 times in many other channels and platforms, but with a twist. And that twist is to bring the overall take-home messaging as a citizen, because many of you do care for the given aspect of your lives, but more importantly, as an investor, because this is where everybody wants to know how can a budget benefit their investing. Watch this episode as we unveil one layer of happiness at a time. You're watching Informed Investor, the Third Empire, an initiative by Research and Ranking. The Union Budget 2023 was presented on the 1st Feb of 2023 amidst high expectations. Now, since this was the last full budget before the much-awaited 2024 general elections, it was expected that the government could announce some income support for the rural sector or implement some measures to boost consumption growth in the economy. However, the government did not give in to these populist expectations and continued with its investment-led spending strategy to propel growth along with modest fiscal consolidation. The budget presented by the Honorable Finance Minister Shri Nirmala Sitharaman ji has demonstrated continuity and builds on the last year's budget announcements with intensifying focus on capital expenditure. Now, capital expenditure, as we had discussed in our precursor episode to the budget, is the expenditure incurred on procuring or building assets which can help generate revenue, profits, dividends, etc. Now, navigating the growth paradox amidst an increasingly volatile global backdrop remains the key challenge. The government of India has largely continued with its focus on driving capital expenditure by enhancing the gross budgetary support for roadways, railways, and the defense sectors. Now, the budget had a strong focus on capital expenditure and infrastructure development, as well as giving more money in the hands of the middle class and improving agricultural income, along with job creation through skill development for the weaker section. Now, over the last 3 years, and particularly after the pandemic, the government has consistently hiked the allocation for capital expenditure. Now, at the risk of sounding repetitive, capital expenditure is the expenditure which helps in creating assets, and these assets yield income while also creating additional jobs. Now, the capital expenditure has a much higher multiplier effect. As per the government, every 1 rupee spent on capital expenditure creates an immediate multiplier effect of 2.45 rupees. Now, this is huge, and it adds more to the economic output than the revenue expenditure, which comprises of salaries, pensions, interest payments, etc. Now, in just 3 years, the capital expenditure outlay has more than doubled to 10 lakh crores. I repeat, 10 lakh crores from 4.39 lakh crores in FY 2021, which by the way is over 3% of our GDP currently. Now this CAPEX will provide a booster shot to the economy, especially at a time when the private capital expenditure, which is the investments made by private companies, is still slow. Now my colleague Preeti has covered the details of the announcements made in the budget pertaining to the capital expenditure plan for FY 2024 in our share market updates named the Daily Insights That Matter, which was released on 3rd Feb 2023. I would strongly urge you to take a look at that video. Now complementing the centre's capital expenditure push, Nirmala Sitharamanji has allowed the states to raise up to 1.3 lakh crores through 50-year interest-free loans. Now the effective capital expenditure, which includes grants to the states, is budgeted at rupees 13.7 lakh crores for the next year, which is almost 13% higher than what we had seen in the fiscal year ending 2023. Additionally, the huge allocation to railways of rupees 2.4 lakh crores next year compared with 1.59 lakh crores in the current fiscal, roads and highways of rupees 2.7 lakh crores in FY24 compared to the current 2 lakh crore outlay, and housing via the PM Awas outlay, which has been hiked by 66% to 79,000 crores, will not only boost demand for heavy equipment, cement, steel and other commodities, but also assist in generating more employment. Now the government's proposed expenditure for FY 2023-2024. Now when I talk about a 33% surge in capital expenditure for FY 24, I'm sure many of us can hear warning bells ringing for the effect it would have on the fiscal deficit. Well, no, the government believes they have everything under control, and rightly so. The government has managed to stick to its fiscal prudence mantra and did not breach its deficit target of 6.4% of the GDP for the current financial year. Now the chart on your screen shows that the total expenditure for FY23, which is the current fiscal, is expected to rise to 41.87 lakh crores as against the earlier budget estimates of 39.45 lakh crores. Similarly, the total receipts, net of borrowings of course, are expected to rise to 24.3 lakh crores from the budgeted estimates of 22.8 lakh crores. Now the deficit therefore is expected to rise to 17.55 lakh crores from the budgeted estimates of 16.61 lakh crores. So how is the fiscal deficit as a percentage of GDP still estimated to meet the target of 6.4% for this fiscal year? Well, what has helped the government meet its target in the current financial year is the high nominal GDP growth, which by the way, if you recall, is the denominator while calculating the fiscal deficit as a percentage of GDP. Now the nominal GDP is high because inflation has remained way higher at 6.7% for a larger part of this financial year compared with RBI's 4% target. Now the revised estimates for FY23's projected nominal GDP is at 273 lakh crores. Having said that, the government has provided a glide down path which would inspire a lot of confidence. It is estimated the fiscal deficit for the next financial year at 5.9% of the GDP and also hopes to consolidate over the next 2 years such that the fiscal deficit by FY 2026 is at a level of 4.5% of the GDP or lesser. Going forward, it is expected that the total expenditure for the next financial year would stand at 45 lakh crores, while the total revenues net of borrowings are expected to be at 27.16 lakh crores. Now, the next logical question here would then be whether there are enough avenues for the government to raise these receipts. Well, yes, the multiplier effect arising from the capital expenditure already incurred and the revenue thus generated will boost the economy and will help keep the figures in check. That being said, the nominal GDP for the next fiscal year is expected to rise at 10.5% to 301 lakh crores. The government is also trimming back a bit of the food, fertilizer and petroleum subsidies. Collectively, this is the highest expense for the government after the interest it pays on its borrowings. And remember, this kind of expense is not capital in nature, which means there's no multiplier effect as such. But this is an expense that the government has to incur to help the common man. Now, apart from the food subsidy during the war in Ukraine, fertilizer prices shot up. Had the government not subsidized it then, it would have translated into a stark rise in food prices and inflation, which would have hurt everybody. Now that the macroeconomic environment is comparatively better, the government can afford to dial it back a bit without hurting the people. The point that we are trying to draw here is that it's a fairly tough task to run an economy which spends a lot more than it earns. And this deficit, which gets funded by borrowings, needs to be kept under check at all times. So while the government plans to spend a lot of money, it plans to do so judiciously, with every penny contributing to the creation of jobs and also adding to the multiplier effect onto the economy. So the investor in you should be happy, as the capital expenditure will have a direct impact on the GDP and will help boost it. Now, for the common man in you, the finance minister provided the much awaited relief to taxpayers by raising tax slabs, albeit on the new tax regime only. Once again, my colleague Rahil has covered the details of the changes in the tax slabs in our daily Insights That Matter video, which was released on the 2nd of Feb. I would strongly urge you to take a look at this video as well to get a better understanding of the changes in the personal tax slabs. Now, to summarize, the number of tax slabs has been reduced from 6 to 5 in the new tax regime, and all individuals having an annual income of Rs 7 lakhs or lesser have been completely exempted from paying any taxes. Now, there are no changes in the tax slab under the old tax regime though. For an individual having an annual income of Rs 10 lakhs under the old regime, after availing all the deductions, the tax liability would be at 18,200 rupees only, whereas in the new regime, the liability would come up to approximately 54,600 rupees without any deductions. Now, the deductions under the old regime could include the standard deduction of 50,000 rupees, housing loan interest deduction of Rs 2 lakhs, Section 80C deductions of Rs 1.5 lakhs, tax deductions under 80D of Rs 24,000 on health insurance premiums paid, and lastly, the contribution to the National Pension Scheme of approximately 50,000 rupees, and so on. Now, the old tax regime still looks more lucrative for people with higher annual incomes, but only if they have the investments to claim enough deductions. Now, there's another small but significant change in the foreign investment tax. Let's say you want to invest in the stocks in the US. Currently, the bank or the dealer will collect a 5% tax at source if you're investing more than 7 lakh rupees. But from now on, irrespective of the amount, they'll collect a 20% tax. This means if you're investing 1 lakh rupees overseas, 20,000 will be taken away immediately. Now, the government is doing this with the aim of not letting money go out of the country. They'd much rather have people save and invest in the Indian assets in India. That being said, the budget covered a lot of lucrative announcements for the senior citizens as well. The budget for FY 2024 has increased the maximum permissible investment in the Senior Citizen Savings Scheme, which is popular investment amongst the elderly. The Post Office Monthly Income Scheme too has been made more attractive. Srimati Nirmala Sitharamanji doubled the maximum limit under the Senior Citizen Savings Schemes to Rs 30 lakh from Rs 15 lakh with an assured interest of 8% per annum, wherein the interest is paid quarterly. Additionally, the investment limit under the popular Post Office Monthly Income Scheme has been raised to 9 lakhs from Rs 4.5 lakhs. And in case of joint accounts held in the Post Office Monthly Income Scheme, the investment limit has been hiked to 15 lakh rupees from 9 lakh rupees. Now, the scheme pays a monthly interest at the rate of 7.1% per annum. The other highlights from the budget include the focus on green energy. Green growth was one of the 7 key priorities of this budget, leading to a rollout of several initiatives apart from reiterating some existing ones. An outlay of Rs 35,000 crore was announced towards energy transition, net zero objectives, and energy security. The outlay of 19,700 crores, which was announced for the National Green Hydrogen Mission in Jan 2023, was further reiterated during the budget. PM Pranam and Green Credit programs were announced to incentivize sustainable initiatives such as the use of alternative fertilizers and incentivizing environmentally sustainable actions, respectively. Now, the Union budget has highlighted the importance of coarse grains or millets as means of sustainable cultivation that can raise the income of small farmers in arid regions, besides providing food and nutritional security globally. The millets have been an integral part of our Indian diets for centuries now. Millets, in addition to providing numerous health benefits, are also beneficial to the environment due to their water and input requirements. The United Nations declared 2023 as the International Year of Millets at the request of the Government of India to raise awareness and increase the production and consumption of millets. The Economic Survey for 2023 also highlighted that India alone was responsible for the production of approximately 80% of Asia's and 20% of the world's production of millets. Now, India is the largest producer and the second largest exporter of Sri Anna in the world. India grows several types of Sri Anna, including Jawar, Ragi, Bajra, Ramdana, China, and Sama. The Union Budget highlighted that to make India a global hub for Sri Anna research, the Indian Institute of Millet Research in Hyderabad will be made into a center for excellence for sharing best practices, research, and technology at the international level. Additionally, there was a very important announcement of establishing 157 new nursing colleges, which is pretty much the need of the hour as we have an acute shortage of skilled medical professionals. We only have 1.7 nurses per 1,000 people, and it's way short of the recommended 3 nurses per 1,000 people. We need at least 4.3 million more nurses by 2024 to be in a safe space, and hence this announcement is a welcome move. Lastly, there's a huge plan to establish a national digital library for children and adolescents, and the states will also be encouraged to set up physical libraries and provide access to the digital library through these places, which would be highly beneficial for the young generation of today. The term visionary is very loosely spelt and otherwise inferred in conversations that relate to a leadership or to an intent that any government, and I hope you excuse me because I'm not being a politically affiliated person on this show today, but the intent for the vision that somebody has goes a long way in sending the right signals to the people who are looking for those quick bullet points which can be the booster for their confidence. Now, 5 times in this term, the confidence has been boosted because of what the government wanted to do with growth being at its core. This budget builds on the confidence for sure. It builds on the overall intent. It builds on the vision, and further, it builds on to giving more discretionary spending based savings in the hands of you and I as the middle class. Now, it builds on supporting the MSMEs, the Vishwakarmas as Modi ji calls them, of the tribals that work with handicrafts, of the women trying to save the extra penny that they can at the end of the day. Now, to support that entire ecosystem is now to the youth of creating tourism, of building the next age AI infrastructure, of getting the most out of the 5G services by building the innovation labs, by working on things that the world is still grappling, that how do Indians do this at all? Because IT as a service has grown to a point where we've been able to replace the imports by the exports. That is the imports of crude by the exports of IT services. We've just embarked upon the next big leap of innovation in AI, which is in robotics, which is in 3D printing, which is in a lot of forward-looking initiatives which any government could not have even thought of. So at this particular point in time, we only stand and marvel or can appreciate what landmark reforms have been put in front of us. Now, if you ask me to summarize it all over again, because this is being done umpteen number of times already and I don't mind doing it for the last. A big push to infra where you will see a 2.5 to 3 times of multiplier effect, a big push to MSMEs to support them at their own district level for what they do best, a whole push to a nation where the average medium age is 28 years and around that, and realizing that the human capital and human dividend is something that the government has been doing very beautifully, to the whole push of embarking that at the end of the day, key sectors like health, like education, like infrastructure, like agriculture, like defense are not left behind. All this revision points to the fact that there are people who go to bed with at least one meal which fills their stomach and their soul at the end of the day. And this budget caters and answers to every single person who calls themselves a proud Indian. With that, this is Raj Mehta signing off, wishing you and your loved ones the very best. Thank you.
Did you like watching this video? Then download our app Informed Investor to watch more such informative and interesting videos.